Hi, and welcome to FrazlCast. Climb aboard the GNOME train.
Chugga, 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 chugga.
Please make sure to keep your limbs and experimental instruments inside the train at all times. And now, on with the show.
A podcast by a Blizzard fan gnome about World of Warcraft and geeky stuff. I promise you, they do talk about the World of Warcraft. They just go off the rails sometimes.
So I'm Frazly, and on this second day of spring, I am wearing a sparkly shirt, and I'm joined by Chris of MMOReporter.
Hi.
And Dusty of Blizzard Umbrella and Nerd This Podcast.
Hello, everyone.
It's great to have both of you on this episode. I was thinking before this one, I've listened to Chris for so long before I got back into WoW. I mean, I was in Final Fantasy 14, ESO, different things. I didn't listen to Blizzard podcast, so I got back into Blizzard again. So, Dusty, I didn't hear you until I got back into Blizzard, but then I listened to you since I got back in.
That's okay. I'm all right with that. Yeah, I've listened to Chris as well for a good minute. Yeah,
nice.
Thank you.
Your podcast was always fun, Chris, and so was yours, Dusty. I'm not trying to put. No, I'm.
I see how it is, Presley. I see how it is.
That's right. I'll pay you the money I owe you later.
Okay, good. Because I just bought a new pair of headphones that hopefully have no cables on. I need it.
Thanks.
On this episode, we're going to meet MMO Chris. We will talk about the balance of playing WoW and being a new parent. I don't have any experience in that, except I've got a niece and nephews. But you do, I believe. And then we're going to get some listener feedback on what features from other MMOs would be great in WoW. So I think without that, let's dive in.
It's time to go around the table.
Great idea. So let's do that. So what have we been up to recently? We'll start with Chris.
I think the biggest thing is really the past few months, Selenia, my wife, and I have gotten back into WoW. I was playing, I've been subbing pretty regularly. I think I have an unbroken train of subs for, I think since before Legion was really it. And it used to be the joke on our podcast between myself, my co-hosts Bill and Harry, that it was kind of like, oh man, I did something bad.
I remember those.
I resubbed to WoW. And it was, the moment that you had to come clean. But I've been subbed pretty regularly since Legion, but that was just me. And now, just a few months ago, my wife has gotten back into WoW with me, so we get to play together again, which we did a lot. We did actually some podcasts together, Rift Reporter. She was on Lotro Reporter a lot, and she was my producer all through all of our PAX experiences.
Nice.
So we've been doing that. I think we're 78 now with our little gnomes. I thought you'd be proud of that. She's
Absolutely.
A mage and I'm a warrior. That's a lot of fun. But I made the switch, and we're gnomes, so we're lions, but I made the switch because she's going to be playing. I'm actually full-time Alliance now. My Horde tunes are just sitting there. They're not doing anything. So I got my Demon Hunter.
I remember the time of YouTube gaming, which was now years ago. And I remember watching MMOReporter doing live streams. I'm like, can I play? Oh, you're Horde and I'm Alliance. So we can now play soon.
Yeah, we can. And it's been a bit of a shift because now I have to get my I got my Demon Hunter up to 120. And the only reason I did Demon Hunter is because it starts at 100. So I can get up to 120 a little bit quicker. And I was also really impressed with the mobility and how quickly I can make money with a Demon Hunter using my herbalism, because I'm making bank, like absolute bank on the Demon Hunter. So mobile, I can pretty much ignore mobs when I'm out hunting, which with my Paladin, I could walk away from the keyboard and auto attack and still kill, 20 or 30 mobs at a time. But that still takes time. And now with my Demon Hunter, I can ignore them and just run away and sprint away. And all that mobility is so helpful. So I'm making tons of money with that, which is funneling my wife and I's character, which is a lot of fun. I'm not loving Demon Hunter. It's not my favorite class. I don't know about you guys, but it's okay. I'm sorry for all the Demon Hunter mains that hate me. You can send all your hate mail to bill@mmorreporter.com. He'd be happy to receive all those emails.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was a time actually I kept getting Bill and you confused. I kept wondering which.
Well, we're both Canadian, so we both speak weird, eh?
Yeah.
Hey.
But I love the accent. It's nice.
I don't have an accent. You guys sound weird. I don't know what you're talking about. Sorry, a boot.
And he even said sorry.
Sorry.
No, sorry about that. I'll try to stop saying sorry quite so much. Did you know in Canada there's actually a law that saying sorry in court does not equal accepting blame, but is simply a show of empathy?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's actually in the courts. Yeah. So if you say sorry in court, you're not taking blame. You're just showing empathy. I like that.
That is too funny.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But Dusty, I bet when you say sorry, you're showing blame, right? Because you're from the United States.
Yeah, from the South as well, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So, if we say sorry, absolutely. That's there is there's no Canada here. It's definitely telling blame. Yes, absolutely.
And you also do bless your heart, meaning oh what an idiot.
Yeah, my parents and grandparents say that very frequently. Bless their heart. Oh, bless their heart. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how we all have our little sayings.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So Dusty, what have you been up to?
Well, it's kind of been on pause, really, as far as I still have my WoW sub, and I've just recently, kind of like Chris said, kind of dove back in, as we'll talk about, I'm sure, here very soon. About a little over 3.5 weeks ago, my wife and I welcomed our second child, so we do have a newborn. So
congratulations.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. The gaming time has decreased immensely, obviously, but there's still been some time to kind of fit it in here and there. Honestly, up until, the 1.5 patch, which is, with the new allied races, and I had everything up to date. I had, 2 characters at max. I had a mage at 106, kind of grinding him through islands, kind of doing some fun stuff there. I was very, very motivated every time I see you stream, Frazly, because every time I see you, you're continuing to level all of these alts, and you have your High Mountain Tauren, and now you're working on another allied race. Very, very, very motivational, my friend.
Well, thank you.
I can't find myself the time to do that as of yet, but I definitely, with these 2 allied races, I really want to get in there and see what they're all about. I haven't had a chance to dive in and do all of the story stuff yet. I've done the Vol'jin stuff, which has been a lot of fun. I have dove into to unlocking the Kultiran, and super excited about getting my beefy Kultiran pirate, ready to go. And I'm not sure what I want to do, because the Druid forms are so good with both the Kultiran and the Zandalari. So I'm not sure yet, because I don't want to roll both of them as Druids, because even if I decide to level them occasionally, I don't know. I think I may want something different. So I'm not quite sure. Maybe one a hunter and one a druid. I think that's another thing that's so cool, is that, when new races come out, if they can be hunters, they get a new type of pet, a new cool looking pet. And if they're, able to be druids, then they get obviously the really cool forms. And I love the Kultiran, the kind of wicker look of the kind of the old timey wood look of the different forms that they can take. And then the Kultiran, obviously, that they look fantastic all around. Might do a paladin, I'm not sure yet. Really been enjoying just diving in at a more casual pace. And I really want to go in the raid finder and finish up the I can never say the name of the newest raid. I'm not even going to try to attempt it right now, but I want to finish. Yeah, Chris is right. Yeah, I don't want to mess it up. I'm terrible at names. If Ryan was here tonight, he would tell you Dusty's like the worst at names. But overall, I've been playing a lot of other games as well, other than WoW. But WoW's definitely been kind of my mainstay.
Nice, and I've definitely been enjoying the Battle for DeLorean. It's been a lot of fun.
Battle for DeLorean.
I think that's just the new name now. There's no other choice.
Yes,
that's funny.
I've definitely been leveling a lot. Like, I think this will be my 4th 120 once I get it up there. So I'm just excited.
Crazy.
That's insane. Yeah.
It's fun. I get to hang out with people on chat, like Nihar, Torloff, different people. I mean, just and Leo Wild. I mean, just all awesome people who I hang out with. Winchester. I can't forget all the people that are like there encouraging me for puns and stuff like that. And what's weird is I still get time to watch movies and TV shows. Now, again, I don't have kids. I don't have a wife, so I think maybe that helps me a lot.
Maybe.
I finished The Umbrella Academy. If you're looking for a great show on Netflix, yes.
So good. So good.
Oh, I didn't know what to think about it. And Michael Hyatt was like, you should try it. So I did. Love it. Love every moment of it. I could not stop watching it. And in fact, I also finished Russian Doll at the same time. I don't know how I feel about Russian Doll, but I was an interesting one. But I loved The Umbrella Academy. I passed my driver's license renewal for me, because for me, we have to renew every 4 years. Wow. And my vision's not the best. The testing machines they use are old. They're not updated. So you're looking at like old like CRT monitors, what feels like, and you're like, try to look at this old monitor and tell us what your vision's like. I'm like, I can see the stuff in real life. Depending on how you feel, either watch out when I'm on the road or excited, yay, Raz is on the road.
Did you guys see the I don't know if you guys are fans of this, but did you see the Stranger Things 3 trailer?
Yeah.
No, not yet. Oh
Yeah, it's
Shared that with the whole family. Yeah.
Yeah, the hype is, I'm super excited about that. I cannot wait for that to happen.
I can't either, because I mean my hype for that goes up to 11.
Me too.
And just, you haven't even seen the trailer yet, so wait until you see that.
So good.
Man, so good.
I'll have to watch that, because that like, I've loved every Stranger Things, and like I even like have a synthwave station on Pretzel when I'm listening to stuff, and that's so much fun to listen to it, because I love the 80s. I was born technically in the 80s. I mean, I was conceived in the 80s, so even though I was born in the 90s, kind of maybe an 80s baby.
I feel old. Feel old.
Wait, how does that make me feel then? I feel old that I'm almost 30.
Really? I'm gonna, this is a family friendly podcast, and I will keep things family friendly, but I'm thinking very bad words right now.
I don't know what
bad words.
I can see it.
Yeah.
Speaking of like family friendly, Michael and I of the Blue Recluse do a leveling. So we've been leveling our gnomes right now. Every week we just go through for about an hour. So my gnome Lil Cuz is now level 35, and we're in the Western Plaguelands. I haven't seen Plague Bear yet, but I think we're at the levels. The Plague Bear won't come toward us. That was crazy back before they changed the leveling. It was level 60 when you walked into the zone, and it would just come right at you.
That's funny. Now, are you guys planning to go all the way to 120 with those?
Yeah, and then I don't know what we're doing it past that, but we got a long way to go before we get to 120.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. But it's fun. It's kind of like a way to chat. I mean, just have fun. And it started out as going to be like videos, but then we turned it into a Twitch stream. It's just a lot of fun. We get people joining. Mm-hmm. And then I did the Battle for DeLorean, LFR Wing 2. That was fun. Took down Rosticon. Took down the Opulence. I only died once or twice, and I only missed the elevator once or twice. But I heard the elevator doesn't kill you, so I didn't want to try that. And then Korlak, my Kulturan Shaman, is now level 55. So I finished up in Ashenvale, Felwood, and Winterspring for Lore Master, and I got the Lore Master of Kalimdor achievement.
Nice.
My goal this year is to get Lore Master, because you get a tabard, you get a title, and I'm just excited for that. And then I'm going to try to finish up Blasted Lands before I head into Northrend, back to the cold.
That is for sure one of my goals as well. Back, a little under a year ago, I rolled a Lightforged Draenei and decided that I wanted to go for the Lore Master as well. And so I kind of was cleaning up and doing some stuff. What really put a halt to that was when I got to the BC content and got to Hellfire Peninsula. Yes. And I realized that I had to go and do that entire zone. I did it, and I drudged through it, but man, that just left such a sour taste in my mouth. And you know what? I really enjoyed the later levels of Kalimdor as far as like through like the eastern and western Plaguelands. I think I did Feralis, I believe, towards the end there as well. I really enjoyed that. And then I got there and I was like, oh my goodness, I did it, but man, I did it with not a smile on my face. But I'm in the second zone now in the Burning Crusade content now. I believe it's Zangarmarsh.
Yeah.
And love it way much better.
Much better.
I love it. Yeah. I love it there. The little mushrooms and the blues and the greens, they're fantastic.
Yeah, we when we did we're at 78 now, like I said, Selene and I, and we are actually just working through Burning Crusade. That's awesome. When we first played, maybe like 7 or so years ago, in WoW, we got to Burning Crusade, and our entire group was like, nope, we're done. No more of this crap. And we moved on to another game. That tells you what Burning Crusade does. But well, no, let me rephrase that. That tells you what Hellfire Peninsula does.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So we actually finished the zone, and we're going through and every zone that we do, we're trying to complete as much as we can, except for the annoying quests, which we just skip. I guess that's not really completing then. But we're on our 4th zone in Burning Crusade, and we went from 60 to 78 because we've got the Refer a Friend XP.
Oh yeah,
which is huge. Like you just fly through the levels. So we've in the 3.5 zones, we've gotten from 60 to 78. So we're going to do a little bit of Pandaria. And then we're going to jump right back into the same zones by going to Warlords of Draenor once we hit 90, right? So it'll kind of be doing the same areas, but different.
Which is just a huge head spin when you do that. Because it's like, I was just here and loving through this content. You see how like most of the vanilla content has been updated to Cataclysm. So you saw what they learned from vanilla, BC, and Wrath in Cataclysm. And then when you go back to the Burning Crusade, like, wow, they've improved. I mean, there's even stuff in Northrend that they have improved in Cataclysm. It's just weird to see where they go. But
I quest in Battle for Azeroth, and I have so much fun, and then I go back to that older stuff, and it's a little bit of a slog to get through. They just got so much better at their zone design, their questing, all that sort of stuff. It's just such a better experience in Legion and Battle for Azeroth. Kind of the newest phase of WoW. I kind of class those two together into the new way of doing things.
Yeah.
My favorite expansion has always been Mist of Pandaria. And I went back at the beginning of, right as Legion was ending, going into BFA, I told myself, and in MMOs, and Chris, you probably know this as deep in the space as you've been, sometimes you have to set goals, or else you kind of just aimlessly wander around. And so at the end of Legion, I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back and I'm going to get exalted with the rep that rewards the Water Strider, which I had never done. And I got to spend, every morning, before I worked from home. I would log in. I would do my dailies. I enjoyed that so much. It was the same zone. It was the same quest, but the music is phenomenal. The artwork is phenomenal. And I just, honestly, sometimes I just log in and go to that palette and that character and just go there to the island and just enjoy the sounds and stuff. So I'm really excited about being able to get my characters up to that area and be able to go through all of those, the Jade Forest and all of the different areas that I loved so much back then.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, the BFA, if BFA was so good on the story and like the questing, I cannot wait to see what they're going to blow us away with at BlizzCon this year.
That's going to be exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think Christy Golden said, possibly, it was either Christy Golden or somebody on the story team, that we are on the first of a 3 expansion story arc. And I'm like, if this is the first thing, it's going to be great.
Yeah. I didn't buy into the BFA hate that there was out there at launch or even throughout. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was one of the better expansions that I've played. There were issues, but for me, for my play style and the way that I go through the game, it was a ton of fun and a really enjoyable and repeatable experience for me. I'm happy to go through and leveling my Demon Hunter. It was more the class fantasy that I really didn't dig more than going through that content again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that BFA has gotten a lot of unjust criticism. I think that a lot of the things that Blizzard as a whole is experiencing as a company is probably trickling over to WoW, as I think BFA is a really good expansion. I think, now don't get me wrong, there were some things that with the Azerite armor and some issues and stuff at a higher level that I don't play at. I'm much more casual to where, Chris, it seems to me you're kind of in the same space I am right now. We probably didn't see all of that stuff as people were capping out their necklace and things like that, whereas, people who are progressing, raid wise, they were very frustrated with that. The only criticism I have right now, Frazley, you can tell me your thoughts on this, is just the snail's pace at which we are getting the story. Yeah. And I feel like we had the burning of the tree. We have all of the Sylvanas stuff. And then all of a sudden they just screech the brakes. And it's like, well, come on now. When are we going to get give me more? And I understand with the whole Naga storyline coming up in 8.2, all of that good stuff's coming. But I feel like they could have give us a little more going forward.
It's a little bit like reading Wheel of Time. And when they go off onto the long chapters, several chapters long bits where it's the characters you don't care about, you kind of skim those pages instead of reading them in depth before it gets the good stuff again.
Yeah.
Or is that just me?
Oh no,
I'm the same way.
I have never read Wheel of Time yet, but I will at one point. But it's like reading Game of Thrones. Oh, I'm going to get so much hate for that. But when you're reading, you skip through all the amazing descriptions of genitalia, and then you get back to what's the main story.
Yeah.
I think they described a bodily liquid in one of them. Anyway, Chris. Yes, moving on. So, Chris, your first time here. I want to get to know you a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, I know you through the podcast. But I don't know if listeners here, hopefully they've listened to MMOReporter, because I mean it's a fun show. I've always loved it. But what is your gaming history?
Oh boy. Okay, so this is the point where everybody pauses the podcast, gets their cup of coffee, comfy blanket, socks, all that stuff. Sit down, because it's going to be a long ride.
Stay a while and listen.
So way back when, So let's just sort of go with modern stuff. I actually played Ultima Online quite a bit, but I didn't have a computer that would run it. This is my origin story here. So I would actually pay. I convinced the internet cafe underneath the condo that I was renting to install it on their computers, and I would pay the hourly rate plus the sub to play Ultima Online at the internet cafe. And so played that for a while, because that was, I played tons of Ultima. And so got into that. Did the whole Asheron's Call and Dark Age of Camelot. Man, I still love my Thane. Can I get my Thane back, please? I just want my... That's all I want. Is it so much to ask? Did all of those games. EverQuest very shortly. I did actually a big stint back into EverQuest when a friend of mine moved from being in game journalism to working at SOE and working on EverQuest. So the minute he got that job, I went and I subbed to EverQuest and played that quite heavily for a while, just to sort of see what it was like again. But really, I think the heaviest gaming started when we started playing Dungeons and Dragons Online. And that was myself and my friend and co-host from MMOReporter, Bill, his wife, Asani. We were playing Dungeons and Dragons Online and on voice comms and having so much fun. And my wife was sitting, doing whatever she was doing, thinking, oh, that kind of sounds like fun. So we got her hooked onto Dungeons and Dragons Online. Actually got my mother-in-law into it too. So we would 5-man all the 6-man dungeons, because Dungeons and Dragons Online, for those of you who haven't played it, was all instance. You went into dungeons and ran through dungeons. And so we would 5-man them all, because that was our group and we didn't want to pick up a rando. So we'd 5-man them. And that was fun. We went from there. Once it started to decline a bit, we jumped over to WoW, and that was our WoW experience, got up to level 60. But then really it started to hit for us when we went into Lord of the Rings Online. That's when we started podcasting for Lotro Reporter. Got going from there. All of us were all playing Lord of the Rings Online. My wife was home with the kids a lot, so she'd play during the day when the kids were sleeping. And then from Lotro, we went into Rift, but kept Lotro going at the same time. And this is where it kind of started playing way too many games at once, because at one point I had 6 podcasts a week that I was doing.
I remember that.
5 of which were for different games. I think, what was it? Defiance and Guild Wars and Lotro and Rift and ESO and then MMOReporter. So like Dustin was saying, I had to have a lot of plans and a lot of goals in games, or else I'd just be wandering aimlessly, and that was not fun. So played a whole bunch of them, got really into Rift. Oh my gosh, I still miss Rift. Launch first year of Rift was amazing. Then kind of into WildStar for a while, missed that one too.
Yeah.
Now kind of back to lots of WoW. Anthem is kind of really scratching that itch right now. A little bit of Apex Legends, but the problem is I'm old, as we've gone over today. Thank you, Frazly. Apex Legends, Fortnite, like that stuff, I just suck. And my boys try to play with me. They're teenagers, and they're like, come on, let's play together. And they carry me through a match, and they're so intense, and they're so good. It's actually really funny. The other day, one of my sons comes up and says, yeah, I'm in a clan for Fortnite. Yeah. So he's now into that part. I remember getting into my first clan. Gosh, what game was it for?
Counter-Strike?
No, it was the ski jumping. Oh, what was it called? Anyways.
SSX?
I don't remember. Anyways, Torloff in the chat room, Rift is not dead yet, but it might as well be. It's in maintenance mode, pretty much. So that's kind of my gaming history. A lot of different games, especially, when we were doing all the PAX coverage and all that sort of stuff, and I'd be playing gosh, like 8 or 9 games at a time, and it was nuts.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot of games that you've been through.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not all of them, but that's kind of the highlight.
And like, you have made one of my favorite songs in podcast history, and it's one that still is even true to this day for me, as we talked about earlier.
You're logging into your favorite game, grinding out some gear. A couple of points added to your stats, and you have a virtual beer. Max level is pretty cool, but I'll remind you here, my friend. These games are not about the goal, it's about the journey and not the end. Don't forget about your ults, you need to cherish each and every little carrot.
Impressive.
I love that song. I mean, it's one of those, I will sing along all the time. And that's like, and at that point, when I faded out, is when you'd be like, and welcome to MMOReporter.
That is the genius of Harry Hall, songwriter, game journalist, and now a stand-up comedian extraordinaire. He's making quite the career for himself as a stand-up comedian in the Netherlands.
Oh, I did not know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's quite successful. I see it all the time on Facebook, so he's doing really well. You should follow him on @HarryHall on Twitter. Good guy. You know, we did a whole bunch of songs through MMOReporter's bit, and I'm a music teacher. That's what I do. It's my career, so kind of was a lot of fun, and Harry's very musical as well. And so it was fun to come up with these ideas. I think the fastest turnaround one was probably Snowchar, when we did Do You Want to Build a Snowchar for Guild Wars Reporter? And that was like that night I did that. And then I emailed my co-host Celeste for that podcast, and I just said, don't ask questions, just record and send me. Go away, Chris. And that's it. That's all I want. Just send it to me. And so I did that for the little knock on the door bit. Ding, 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 ding. Go away, Chris. So that was the quickest turn. But we did a whole bunch of stuff and tried to get as many of the hosts in on it too. Dumb Ways to Die, I think, was the one where we had every host on the network part of that one and helping with the writing and stuff like that. Yeah, I think the hardest one to record, though, was probably More Than Deeps. That was tough.
Yeah. And I remember being on the Heroes game where you came up with the idea of hello from the other lane.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun too.
So how did you get into podcasting with the MMOReporter? Because I know you started at the MMOs and you did all that, but what got you started into podcasting about it?
I remember exactly what it was. Actually, we had a birthday party for my kids, and a bunch of my gaming friends were over, and we're like listening to podcasts. Oh, we should make our own podcast. And we talked about maybe doing one for WoW, but there's so many of those and they're so good that we decided to do one for Lord of the Rings Online, which there weren't a lot for. And so started from there and just wanted to have fun and talk about the game and interact with the community. And that was probably where we connected with a community the most. I remember in PAX, I don't remember, I think maybe 2010, so a while ago now, we actually did a live recording at the Turbine event at PAX. So really connected with that community, connected with the developers, and got to see them a whole bunch. That was a lot of fun and started from there. And then from there, it went to MMOReporter because we just wanted to talk about more games because we were playing more than that. And then it's kind of like an addiction. I had a problem.
I've got like 6 or plus podcasts, so I know the addiction. Yeah,
because you just want to talk about stuff, and you want to talk with other people about stuff, and then you want to get the emails back, and the voicemails, and the tweets, and all that. And you want to argue with people about stuff, and it's just a ton of fun to have those conversations and to create those communities and to build those communities, and that's always what's been my favorite part of doing any of this stuff, other than yelling at Bill.
Yeah, I remember when I found Ryan to help me co-host the Blizzard Umbrella show, and since then, just due to real life stuff, we've kind of put that show on hiatus. But out of that show birthed the podcast that I'm currently co-hosting with some really close friends, Tom and Marty and Michael from the Blue Recluse, and then Ryan is on the show as well. And basically, the show is just about all things nerd, right? So it's about video games, it's about movies, it's about TV shows, about comic books, the industries, and just the different fun things that you would just talk about if you were in a room or grabbing, lunch with some buddies or some friends, and being able to record that and get the interaction from, like you said, the emails or the people on Discord. That's just so much fun. And you're right, it is kind of like an addiction. Once you get on the microphone, it's kind of like you better check yourself.
And it's finding that bandwidth of like, how much will you continue on with? Like, I've got ideas for things I want to do. But I'm like, I need the bandwidth for that.
Well, yeah, I know I don't have it right now. So
Yeah, that was sort of, once I got the job that I'm in now, when I moved from a middle school to a high school as the music director, I just didn't have the time to do any of that stuff anymore because I went from teaching like 4 different bands to like 13.
Wow.
So that took up all that bandwidth.
Yeah.
And I miss it desperately. So thank you.
Will we see a return in the future?
I really hope so. I think about it all the time. Really excited to do this, to sort of get to experience it without having to do any of the work. Thanks again.
Totally. Well, that'll be my weekend. I'll be editing.
Yeah. Yeah, it really, and taking on more shows, it really helped. We had some really great crew. Leonor came on to the both on the podcast and took over a lot of the back end. Most of the last few years of PAX, both PAX East and PAX Prime, were done through a team in the back end doing the editing and uploading and all that sort of stuff. And it wasn't, I just got to hang around and talk to people and be on camera, and they did all the hard work.
Because like for me, what I always loved was there was some MMOs I didn't have time to play, but I wanted to hear about them. And it was always fun. Like I remember we were over in Arizona, and every morning we get up, I chugged to the back catalog of MMOReporter that week. Cause I was like, I just listened to all of you talking about.
Thank you.
Back then it was Warlords, and you almost got me back into WoW multiple times. You literally got me so tempted to give it. I'm a diehard Final Fantasy 14, which is a great game, by the way. I was a diehard Final Fantasy 14. I'm like, I'm not going back to WoW. And you got me into ESO. That was around the time when ESO went by to play.
Oh wow,
yes.
that was the one show that I tried like 3 or 4 times to get to take off, and got hosts and all that, and each one like frizzled out after 2-3 episodes or whatever. That was the most frustration I think I've ever had in my life, because I loved ESO.
When WildStar was announced, I've never been more hyped for a game in my life. I was so excited for that game. And so I actually started a WildStar podcast, and it was called WildStar Drop. And it actually took off pretty well. But then the game kind of came out and things kind of dwindled down. And I was like, again, it's very hard to host a show solo, and it was very difficult to find people to kind of with the time schedules to line up. But I do remember listening to MMOReporter back in the day. I believe a lot of when I was listening to the earlier episodes of when you Chris were recording the show, it was in my later years of college, and so it's funny, you remember kind of where you were at when you're listening to these shows, kind of like Frazly just said. I remember listening, I'm not sure the network right now, but his name was Gary Gannon. Do you guys know what was the name of the network of shows he did? Lore was on the Olivia was on the show that they did about WoW.
They built like a whole studio. I remember when
it was
a
whole studio, and I think what happened is they ended up going under because of how much I guess how much resources. But I remember Mr. Happy and the guy from MMO Bomb, I can't think of his name right now, did a Final Fantasy 14 show, and I love that. I listened to shows that I didn't even play the games for, and so I remember listening to all of you guys, and it's fun to kind of reminisce about the olden days of the MMO genres, and not genres plural, but genre, where it's going in the future. Like, I think it's an intriguing, everyone's getting into the game as a service, whether it's Apex or Fortnite or Division 2 or Anthem, which I've played both of those, and it's just going to be really neat to see what the future of MMOs are and how much longer WoW can hold on to the throne. Do
you remember the name Alessander who would write in?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't remember like specifics or anything like that. The name rings a bell.
Okay, it's cool to have listeners of MMOReporter writing into this show. I mean, it was like I've come full circle that people are writing into your show are writing into this.
Yeah, and it's cool when you have those moments, right? Because I had when we did Tora Reporter. That was the other one that I was doing. We did Star Wars SWTOR.
I love that game, by the way.
Oh, man, that's such a good game. I had Scott from The Instance and had him on Tour Reporter one time. He was a connection through my co-host, Josh. So that was a really cool moment, right? Similar to what you're talking about, Fraz. That was just a fun making those connections and seeing how everybody in the podcast community just loves to sort of connect and collaborate and do stuff together. And if they can find the time, they'll make it work. Just really fun.
It was Game Breaker was the name of the network.
That's what it was.
There was a WoW show called Legendary that the current CM on the lead CM, I think, Lore, for the WoW team actually was on that podcast, and so it's.
I remember that.
I absolutely ate up all of that content, even the games that I didn't play. I mean, I dabbled in Guild Wars 2, and I remember when Guild Wars 1 came out, even, and so no, I loved that content.
Yeah,
it's interesting that you guys are talking about like time and like the bandwidth for jobs, and there's one thing I know that does take also bandwidth. Well, I mean, I know because I've seen my sisters go through it. I've not personally experienced it, but WoW takes a lot of time, and talking about WoW takes a lot of time. Both of you are parents. So how has this influenced your life and WoW with the addition of kids?
Maybe Chris can give me some advice, as he has said that he has teenagers. My two girls, one of them is just turned 4, and one of them just turned 1 month. And so the sleep deprivation is real. Obviously for my wife much more than for me, obviously, so I don't want to lie and tell you guys that's not the case. I think that the way that, and Chris, you tell me kind of on your end kind of where this comes into play, WoW is almost the perfect game for a parent, or games like Hearthstone, or games that you can kind of do, but you can also like watch Netflix, or you can do other stuff with. And WoW's kind of been that perfect kind of comfort game during the busyness. But I have found that, if there's ever a decision of, do I play or do I spend time with them, it's always going to be spend time with them. I can always come back and play later. But I've found that especially lately with a little infant, I've had time to play. I'm not going to lie, but I've chosen, not to at times. But man, this is my main hobby is video games, and so with that being said, I don't ever want to get out of the space. I found myself, Frazly, consuming a lot more podcast. So as I'm have one of my AirPods in while we're playing house or playing this or playing that. And so that's kind of the initial stage that I'm at right now. I can't wait to kind of learn and to mold. And I'm very heavy in the space. I work from home, so I can kind of take breaks and play games here and there. But definitely interested to hear kind of Chris's point of view on this.
Yeah, it's kind of overwhelming. I know when we had all our kids together, like we could say for a while that we had 4, 3 and under. Because we had my first, and then 18 months later, we had our twins, and then 19 months later, we had my youngest. So it was like boom, 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 all the kids all at once. Mm-hmm. So the nice thing about that, though, was that they were all good. They went to sleep. We sleep trained them pretty well. And so they would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, really, no matter what time we put them to bed. So they would start going to bed and do their routine at 7. And so by 8 o'clock, really, Selene and I could be on the computers and sort of having our together time, both with our friends online and just with each other playing. So we'd have a few hours and we could play till 10 or 11. And we'd do that most of the nights when the kids were young and when they were in bed. And then I would have to take on some of the weekend to edit shows and all that sort of stuff when we started podcasting. But I really learned, as far as that goes, to be very efficient. But on the weekends, there wasn't a lot of gaming time. Most of it was when the kids were in bed or they were napping. And as they got a little bit older and got to sort of do their own thing, then it'd be kind of a split and spend some time with them. And when they wanted to kind of do their own thing, then I'd go off and be on the computer with Selenia.
Having a supportive partner, spouse, is critical. I think that, when you have kids, like Chris said, him playing with his wife and having my wife who's not going to give me a hard time if I'm like, hey, listen, we just put the kids to bed. I know you want to watch a Hallmark movie right now. Do you mind if I go in here and just for like 45 minutes, like kill some monsters in Diablo or whatever it is. Like, just sometimes just those 30 or 45 minutes of just like, okay, this is a good feeling here. You're not trying to escape. You're not trying to do any of that. You're just wanting to get away just for a few minutes and just have a really good time. And so that support from your family, starting with your parents all the way up to leading to your spouse or your partner, that's extremely critical.
Yeah, and the best thing is as the kids get older, you start to game with them. And that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and my daughter already observes everything. My 4-year-old, and whenever I have the spider pet out in WoW, she's like, "Oh, Daddy, it's a monster! It's a monster!" And she's already noticing things that I do. And with WoW, there's really nothing that she can hurt. And so I'll let her get on a mount and go somewhere in the open field and let her fly around and push the space bar or whatever. And so you're right, Chris. Being able to, I can already see that even if she doesn't want to, I don't want to push her towards it, but if she does, then I'm going to be there waiting with open arms, like, come on, let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Well, and I forget who it was. There was a streamer that I saw on Twitter recently. They stream on Twitch, and their kid
That's
is
cool.
6, playing games, talking to the audience that they don't have because they see their mom doing that when they're playing games.
Yeah, my kids do that a ton. Like, they'll narrate their gameplay experience as they go through. And then we've recorded little videos with most of them. Did one on Rocket League with one of my boys. It's a lot of fun because they see what you're doing. They like what you're doing. And of course, they see Twitch and they see YouTube, and they kind of want to explore that avenue. But it started young with my kids because I used to write for PC Gamer. I got to do a story on family MMOs, so I got paid to write a story and got access to a bunch of family-friendly games and played with them. I think my youngest at the time was like 4 or 5, and tried out, the old Marvel Heroes game, not the one that came out and died, but the really, really old one that was kind of kid-friendly, and did that with them. And I think there was a Hello Kitty one and whatever. Tried all those ones out with them. And so that was a lot of fun. And that got them started and thinking about, playing games.
So would you say like the challenge, but also the advice is finding that balance between playing the game, but also spending this time that you won't ever get back
right
with your kid?
There's no difference between playing a video game with your kid and having a tea party with your kid or playing a board game. You do all of those things, but there's no reasons why video games can't be a part of that bonding experience between you and your children.
Yeah, it's a good formal structure. I mean, because like families play board games, and like I got Mario Party for my nephew, and the whole family's playing it on the Switch and having a great time.
Yeah.
I think getting into your head also that you don't need to feel guilty for playing video. There's room for both, but being able to find that balance and being able to understand, like you said, Fraz, that in a blink of an eye, they're going to be teenagers, and when that time comes, they may not want to spend that time with you, and so being able to understand that and get perspective on that, and understand that you will have time, and you just need to kind of balance it out.
My nephew's texting me, and my niece is texting me, and I mean, like he's playing Fortnite, spending a bunch of money on V-Bucks, and I'm like, where did the time go?
That's too funny.
Yep, that's a thing with the boys, with the kids, not just the boys, but with my boys. They both play a lot of Fortnite, one more than the other, but yeah, a lot of V-Bucks bought so they can buy their battle passes.
I mean, I can't really talk. I bought the latest 2 esports toys from WoW, so I can't talk on the V-Bucks.
And there's nothing wrong with any of it.
No, there's not. Absolutely not. Yeah.
So with MMOs being something of our generation, or even Chris's generation, I'm sorry, Chris.
Man, Chris, he's giving you. I mean, normally with me, it's Marty. Marty's not here for me to give him a hard time about how old he is, and so now Frazley's just giving you a hard time.
I mean, that's fine. It's fine. I'm thinking positive, happy thoughts. Positive,
I always tease those
thoughts.
That's hilarious.
I always tease those that I love. So Chris, here's a hug.
A virtual hug.
And like you can now boop in WoW. So I would do /boop on the nose. I can boop right on the screen right now. So how do you feel WoW compares to other MMOs?
That's a big one. I think really when you look at everything else, and again, send the hate mail to bill@mmorreporter.com. WoW is kind of the last man standing. In my opinion, there are other fantastic games. Final Fantasy XIV is one of those. ESO is still going well. Black Desert Online is the best game that I've ever reviewed that I never have any desire to ever play again at all. But WoW is the constant. WoW is the most casual friendly with hardcore content in there. It doesn't have the same PvP maybe level as Black Desert or anything like that, but it's a whole different landscape. I don't know if I could do PAX shows like I used to, because I don't know if there'd be enough there for me to cover MMO wise, even RPG wise. It's so moving to a different type of game, like Anthem is a really fantastic example of that, with Red Dead Redemption 2, right, with the online part of that. I don't know if I could do PAX again. Like if I had a sponsor, if I had somebody come up and say, you know what, I'll pay all the costs, dig out the gear, you're going to PAX. I don't know what I'd cover. And that's the whole genre as a whole. Blizzard would be there, but there probably wouldn't be much of a WoW presence.
Especially because they have BlizzCon. I mean, they have their...
Yeah.
And Gamescom is kind of their international one.
Yeah, but at the same time, WoW, I feel, is still going strong. And that's not saying that all the other games... ESO has still got a really strong fan base, some really great content that continues to be put out for its players. Black Desert is, I haven't heard of a lot of content for that one. I'm not following any of these as closely as I used to. EverQuest is still putting out expansions for crying out loud. Eve, I get emails from all the time. So there's still content that's coming out from some of these companies, but there's nothing new that's coming down the pipe that I know of that is of this MMO genre. There's MMO lights where they'll bring like ARPGs that have a whole bunch of consistent players in the same space. But they're not the same worlds to live in that WoW is, that Lotro is, that ESO is, Guild Wars 2, all that sort of stuff. And I find it hard to see another one of those coming down the pipe.
I don't know if we'll see one of those kind of old hat MMOs come out. I think WildStar, and then BDO, and then obviously a couple others kind of trickling from the other side of the world, obviously coming over here to the States and North America. I don't know if that model... I mean, obviously Final Fantasy XIV's making it work. Star Wars is holding on, and I hope it continues to hold on because it's a fantastic... I love that game. I love the stories in that game. I feel as if Guild Wars 2 is doing okay. Again, it's one of those things to where I love MMOs, and Chris, you created a whole show, around a bunch of different MMOs. So obviously you do, and Frazl, you do as well. I would love to see another old school MMO, come to fruition, whether it be from Blizzard or another company. I'm just not sure. Like Chris said, I don't know if the audience is there anymore. I don't know if, kids, people who are playing game now and the younger generations, their attention span is drop me in somewhere with 99 players, and then when I die, I want to just get back in the game. That's kind of where we're at right now. The grind and the old school style of a WoW, or even, Chris, you said you played EverQuest. I played EverQuest. I remember my cousin introducing me. Chris, do you remember, like, what if people had to do some of those things that you had to do in EverQuest? Losing levels, just the unbelievable things that we would never imagine now. I honestly, I kind of miss some of that stuff.
Yeah, and the chat room's mentioning things like Ashes of Creation, which is bringing a lot of what EverQuest Next was supposed to bring, and the new technology into the game worlds. But I think that MMOs were driven, and the success of WoW and other games of that era were driven by the high school, college age players who could invest a unhealthy amount of their life into the game, therefore providing the community and the drive behind, the player base. I don't know if that would happen again. Players are so fickle that if it doesn't work out well, WildStar is a perfect example of that. It was so buggy and many aspects of it unfinished at launch that nobody waited around for it to get better. And they weren't going to pull a Final Fantasy XIV and, shelve it and dump a whole bunch of money on it and then bring it back again. And so, unfortunately, that game died.
But what an amazing and innovative game, right, Chris? Like the WildStar, the art design, the way that the skills worked with the action, being able to do skill. I loved WildStar.
So I have a really cool history with WildStar too, because I was at PAX when they did that surprise booth that no one was expecting, and it wasn't busy at all. It just wasn't anybody there. So I actually got pulled into like the back room from one of the community people. I believe it was Troy Hewitt at the time, and went and just chatted about the game, got to play the demo a couple of times and talked about it, and kind of was really, really interested in it right from the get-go. And then, got to connect with those developers a whole bunch more. I knew a couple of them from some of the other stuff that I'd done, and was really looking forward to that game. That was probably the earliest I've ever... I think that was the first game I'd ever started a podcast for. No, Rift we had, but it was shortly, like it was in closed beta that we started it. But with WildStar, we started a show before it was even in closed beta. Like it was still in alpha when we started that show because we were so excited about it.
Yeah, I remember listening to that show.
Yeah, man, I loved that game. That's another one that I will miss, like my Thane from Dark Age of Camelot. I will miss my warrior from WildStar. He was cool.
I would definitely agree with you on the cost, because like WoW took years to develop before we saw it in Telling 4, and it took a long time. And back then when it launched, there was not a lot like this. We didn't have a lot of these massive worlds. I mean, we now have things like, I know No Man's Sky is coming up with No Man's Sky Online, and that's going to be a online experience. And we have our things like City of Heroes. I'm still sad about City of Heroes dying, because that was a great game. And like we have things like Ship of Heroes and City of Titans. I mean, there are games that are being developed, but do they have the time to develop? Do they have the development to develop? I mean, I did have to say, are new MMOs possible?
I think that it's not necessarily even about any of that. It could have a $150 million budget and as much time as it wanted. I don't think there's necessarily an audience for the style of game anymore that would warrant such a big budget and such a long development cycle. I think that companies are not going to put themselves out there like that. However, there's plenty of space for niche games where if they can get their development through on a shoestring budget, and they can get the word of mouth. I mean, Ship of Heroes, great example of that, right? I think that was one of the last videos I did before we started to shut things down. That's going to be a niche product. No matter how you look at it, it's going to be a niche product. So if you can approach it that way and launch it like, an indie game and hopefully get the community, that's always what it's going to be. The type of games that we love thrive and die on their community.
Yep. And I think WoW is definitely old school in some parts of its mentality, but it's weird looking at with Classic coming. There are parts where WoW has been moving with the trends. I was talking with somebody about like game mechanics and how nowadays we want things like that. We don't want to wait. We don't want to grind it out as much as we used to. And if we don't have it, we get upset. I mean, if we don't get it immediately, and WoW has moved with that in certain regards. It definitely does feel like a lot of the other MMOs out there in certain parts. I mean, someone was telling me about like the 2-hour boat rides on EverQuest. It was, I am blanking. Oh, Michael Gaines. Was telling me about the 2-hour boat rides on EverQuest. That could never be done. I mean, we're upset when we have to fly another 5 minutes because they removed a portal.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the old school. I mean, you look at when games come out to where they are in their current state, and you look at a game like SWTOR. I played that game from launch, and I still dabble in it from time to time when they release new content. You had to travel. The XP rate was very low, and then as expansions and updates come out, they're basically handing it to you. With things such as the character boost and things like that, people's lives are different too. Like you look at WoW, like people, when I started playing WoW, I was a kid myself, and now, I have a kid. And so my priorities from those different seasons of my life are different. So if, like Chris said, if I can level a demon hunter, which is one of the reasons why I'm so mixed about the allied races, is I love the races, but I don't have the time to level those guys from 20 to 120 and soon to be 130. I don't have the time. But I do have the time to level from 110 to 120 or 100 to 120 with a demon hunter. Give me some new lore, give me some new story. And so a lot of people's lives are just, people are just growing up. They're changing, and the different trends and things that people want nowadays in a game. And that's the thing about classic WoW, is that there is an audience for that type of gameplay. It's just, can you monetize it? And Blizzard is about to find out. And I think that WoW may be an anomaly because of how big it was back then, and because of how big of a thing that it is. But like Chris mentioned Rift earlier, they were trying to do legacy servers. They were trying to do the whole legacy thing. Lord of the Rings Online's doing it. Pretty successful from what I hear. And so, again, I guess it depends on the IP, where you're at. But people's lifestyles are changing now, and games have to kind of morph to change with them.
Because like one thing ESO did, and I don't know the specifics, but what I understand, you can pretty much log in and go anywhere, and it'll scale you and your party to the level. So you have that sense of progression.
Sure.
But you don't have to be like waiting for things. Like I have to intentionally, with Michael of the Blue Recluse, we have to intentionally turn our characters off whenever we're not recording. I have not leveled a lot with people because I'm always on a different schedule, and like we'll go out of levels. I mean, even Michael and I are about a level behind because Michael picked up herbalism. He was smart on that, and I should have picked up herbalism on my character because that gives you a lot of XP. ESO has done some innovative stuff, and I mean that's scaling. We kind of got that with 7.3.5, but I want more, Blizzard. I want to be able to log in at 1 and go straight to BFA. That would be amazing. And then be with other people, and they will, just like the Dungeon in Legion and even Dungeon in BFA, if I'm 101 and I'm with somebody that's one, or if I'm 110 in BFA and someone's 120, you're scaling it to how it is. That would respect my time, but give me that sense of progression. That same thing that MMOs, it's that progression. I don't know if Fortnite has the progression. I've only played Fortnite once or twice, and I actually stopped because my nephew beat me in Fortnite. Same reason why I don't play Hearthstone, because my nephew beat me in Hearthstone, and I'm like, I can't be beat by my nephew. Oh no, when he starts playing WoW, he'll beat me and all this stuff. Like, I give up.
Yeah, I'm playing WoW with my one of my boys. Just played the other night. It's a lot of fun. But it's really tough to see where the industry is going as someone who's been following and loving MMOs for so long. And it's not necessarily, except for maybe things like Ashes of Creation and the tech that they're using and what EverQuest Next was supposed to use. It's not necessarily a technology thing. Like if you look from when I was a kid, back when, computers were just being... Okay, I'm not joking. My first computer that we ever got, a Texas Instrument, I had to hook it up to the TV because we didn't have a monitor. And I had to type in the game that I got from a magazine and type that in to the memory. And every time I turned it off, it would wipe it because it didn't have a hard drive. So I'd have to retype the game in again. Yeah. The technology from there to where WoW was, that sort of EverQuest, WoW, that sort of time, that was new game opportunities because of the technology. And now I don't see that same technological drive to new game mechanics in the MMO genre, except for those couple of examples. And I don't know what would change it and revitalize technology wise for the MMO genre. I think it's a generational thing. I think that that ship may be sailing into the west.
I could see possibly as a survival thing with like procedurally generated.
Then it's like an ARPG with some survival elements, right? That's Fallout 76. Arc.
And that's going well.
Sorry.
Right.
Sorry, did I show my thoughts on those games?
Maybe a little bit. But I was also asking the community their thoughts on WoW versus other MMOs. And I was asking them, what one feature from another MMO would you like to see in WoW? And wow. I mean, pun intended. Got a lot of responses. So I tried to categorize this based off of what it is. So we got player housing is one of the biggest ones on the list. And we got WoW, Mardian, Zorlak, Leo Wild, Anyboy, Lord Bob the 13th, Fingaro, Tavi, Ali, and Nihar, all like with amazing things about player housing and like the different things like features, quests, crafting. They mentioned Star Wars.
WildStar, awesome housing. WildStar, amazing housing.
Yeah, they had great housing.
I enjoyed the housing in Anarchy Online. That was one of my first things to player housing. And like I wanted that apartment in the Shadowlands that Jericho, I think apartment, it looks so cool. Like I want to have parties and stuff like that. Never did. Never had parties. Trendin said they want the harvesting crafting system from Vanguard. I mean, absolutely. We got kind of that with the Half Hill Farms. It'd be cool to harvest. It'd be cool to gather. I think Black Desert does that as well.
Mm-hmm. Man, that crafting system in Black Desert. I mean, that is, you go to university, go to college, get your business degree, then you can be a crafter in Black Desert Online, because anything less than that, and you might as well just do nothing.
Sure.
And then we got armor dice. We got Mother of Imps, Jen, who aggroed that, Tavi, Ali, Artair, Sil, Rooster, and Zorch. All talk about dyeing the armor. I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we have that, like Guild Wars has dyes. Lothar has dyes. I believe Final Fantasy 14 has dyes.
They have something that's called like a, it's called a, their system is called something different. But it's basically dyes. Yeah. It's basically, that's what it is. But it's called something very Final Fantasy-ish.
Of course.
Glamour. That's what
Glamour,
it is.
yes.
Glamour, yeah. Okay.
I remember I did the Eternal Bonding ceremony, and I did that because I wanted the transmog of Final Fantasy 14. I eternally bonded to somebody that I from the NeoGAF forums. I don't even know who that person was. Well, I mean, I kind of knew in the guild, but I wanted that transmog. Yeah. So I married somebody in game.
That's great.
And I also made my chocobo. You could dye your
chocobo, yeah.
Mine was a DeLorean red. Oh, it was gorgeous.
I remember in Guild Wars 2, some of the most exciting drops that I would get in the beginning stages of that game would be armor dyes, because the Guild Wars 2 implemented the system, and they had tons and tons of colors, like every shade of blue or every shade of purple that you could think of, and it would drop from different mobs, like different rare dyes would, and obviously they would sell those as well. But I remember just some fun early days in Guild Wars 2, doing some loops and grinding for some fun armor dyes.
Yeah,
I probably would do like 50 Shades of Gray for my dyeing.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, Fashion Wars 2 was always fun, and I loved in that game that you unlock the colors rather than have to constantly have an inventory of them.
Which one?
Isn't that Guild Wars 2, right? You unlock them.
Yes, that is how you do it. Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
So that's so much better than having to have like an inventory of the dyes to then apply.
Yes,
which always sucks.
I hate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had Spaz who said that they would take gear dye first, then they would be able to use that when they implement a parent player housing with dyeing furniture. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, because that was something that you'd have to have with the player housing would be the furniture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, going back to the dye. Sorry, just complete different thought. My wife was talking about this. An outfit system where you can build an outfit, a cosmetic that you want, and then every time you get new gear, you don't have to go and retransmog everything, right? And have the outfits on top of what the armor would be, so that you can continue to have that look that you want, whatever your armor may be. That would be nice.
Make the gear a stat. I would love that. I would love it in the transmog to not ever have to retransmog, but that might. But I think WoW wants it for a gold sync. I'm just gonna guess.
Yeah.
Yes. Alice Robinson said personal story a la SWTOR, and that was one of the things that I never played SWTOR. I should play it at some point, but just I loved the story in Knights of the Old Republic. I'm going way old school.
Knights of the Old Republic is not old school, you baby. You're too young. Gosh, old school. KOTOR is old school.
KOTOR. I love some KOTOR.
On the original Xbox One. That's what
I had a Nintendo. I had a buddy across the street who had the Nintendo with the little robot that did its thing, and like that was the exciting thing.
That's funny.
Xbox. God.
I would definitely love a story, and I mean we're kind of getting it. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's stuff happening in 8.1 and 8.1.5 that you kind of choose your story going.
Yes, so yeah, I'm super excited about getting into that actually.
Okay, but how much impact does that actually have on anything?
Probably zero.
Right. Whereas I always felt in SWTOR that, like BioWare games, your choices kind of mattered more.
To a certain extent, yeah.
Right? You wouldn't change the overarching story, but you would change branches that you would have at the, final cinematic would be different for different people.
Sure.
Different dialogue lines, right?
I remember in Mass Effect, it was fun. And Mass Effect 1, I chose to save a civilization from genocide, and then in 3 someone was like, You saved me. I would not be here without. That was a cool moment. I mean, with the save transfer, I got to go back and play those games again.
Yeah.
And then Reptile Jill was saying a combat mount feature of Mountain Blade, and then hair under hats. Absolutely. Then we had Tierman, Ensign, and Natharian, and Vigos mentioned character customization. Absolutely with that. Like more characters, more hair and stuff like that. And even like more things like skinny Coterans and stuff like that. And then one character, multiple classes. This is a big one.
Oh, that's a Final Fantasy 14. That's your love of Final Fantasy 14 is coming through a little bit there, Frasley.
I love that system though.
Yeah, that's the problem with alt right now. I forget what I unlocked and what alt and doing where. I would love to just be like, you know what? I feel like today being a paladin and like rainbowing love and stuff with the heal people. Then someday I just want to be a druid and Moonfire.
Yeah.
You have to switch and it's like, oh, wait, my druid is at 88 and I got to get it up to this level.
Yeah.
That was fun in Final Fantasy 14. Speaking of Final Fantasy 14, Amanda brings up the challenge log.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun. Being like, okay, here's what we got to do. And then it was weekly gold, weekly XP, things like that. And it would get you to do dungeons. It would get you to do things every week. It gave you an incentive to do stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? Anthem does. Their dailies is very similar to that. They have the daily, weekly, monthly sort of stuff of varying levels of depth to do. And that's that's helping keeping me going in that game. Not keeping me going, I'm enjoying it, but it gives me a direction, and as Dusty was talking about before, a purpose when I go into game so that I'm not meandering around Fort Tarsus aimlessly.
Yeah. And then Final Fantasy 14 has a feature I love too. Before I stopped playing, Amanda was saying that Tom would love to play Hearthstone in game.
I agree. I agree with Tom.
Yes,
because wasn't that fun? Like you would go to a boss, you would unlock a card to play in Triple Triad.
Yeah, and it was fun. I mean, I remember when they had a Peggle in game, right?
Yeah,
and that was fun enough. But imagine being able to play against other people like Pet Battles in Hearthstone. That would just be awesome.
And then Final Fantasy 14 had dynamic events that can appear in the world. I was kind of asking Tom about this, and they mean more than just fates, because fates were kind of like the world quest we have, but these dynamic events would apparently happen randomly throughout the world in Guild Wars 2.
I like that system in Guild Wars 2, yes.
Best dynamic events Rift, easily. There's nothing that beat being in that first zone and having a zone invasion where, first you'd have a few of the elemental mobs coming in, and then the rifts would open up and they'd spawn and you'd have to fight the rifts. And it would be a zone-wide event, and everybody, especially through the leveling curve while everybody was in those zones. And even though at endgame, in the end game zones, there were still tons of events. And I remember having drunk rift nights where we drink the whole night, but every time that we downed a rift, we'd down a drink. And it just got progressively better with a question mark as the night went on. But I have never had as much fun with dynamic events, even in the Guild Wars 2 ones, which I think are second place for me, as I have in Rift. Although the invasions in WoW, the last few ones, are okay, but they're like a static version of these dynamic things. So they're not dynamic. They don't grow. There's not a win-loss to that whole thing. Was it kind of like the pre-patch Legion invasions where like you didn't know where it would be? No, that's kind of static too. So imagine if right now, if you're an Alliance player, and in one of the zones, you started to have points where the Horde was trying to build strongholds. Like they were trying to build a spot. And if you didn't go fight enough of those, then they would launch a full-on invasion of that zone. And then they'd have a whole bunch of Horde coming into that zone in dynamic areas and had some sort of goals, maybe taking over, killing all the NPCs in a certain area. And then you'd fight them. And if you won that, then a big world boss would come in and you do that. And if you lost, then the whole zone would be wiped of NPCs and you'd have to kind of rebuild. I'd love to see that. That would be fun. It would make the world feel more alive and give you a feel to it. Especially with Battle for Azeroth, right? What a better way to bring that in. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And then Marty was kind of just being funny, but like they would love better patches with a lot of new story content, just like in the end of Legion. But I mean, I would like more. I'm not trying to say that the developers need to work faster, but I would love a little bit more story content. I mean, but
that's me not doing the coding, all the editing, all the voiceover work.
Anytime you increase the speed of the content distribution, you reduce the quality.
Exactly.
Right.
And we've gotten a lot of great content. I mean, it's not perfect, and I'll never say it's perfect, but it's been great.
Story-wise, I mean, all the zones, Battle for Azeroth, I loved. Vol'dun, that was my favorite of all of them, both on the Horde side and now having run through it on the Alliance side. Love it on both sides. Probably my favorite zone of all. But yeah, more story would be nice.
Yeah. And Titus Creed said basically everything good in Final Fantasy 14 that's not in WoW. I mean, Final Fantasy 14 is a great game.
Noticing a theme here.
Well, I mean, there's stuff that I would love in Final Fantasy 14. And then Nihar was saying having the ESO skill system where you can have hundreds of skills and make and build out of those. Kind of the one job. I saw a private server, but I saw it on YouTube where you could choose any of the talent in WoW. And I mean, like, that would be a fun thing to do is to kind of be like, I want that skill out of that one. I want that skill out of that one. I don't think Final Fantasy 14 ever had that, but it was cool in ESO. You could be a healing sword mage person that didn't use shields.
Yeah.
And then Alessander brought in a lot of great stuff, like the SWTOR story ideas, player-made mod packs that allow players to create new quest stories.
I like that one a lot. Like, I thought that one was really neat. When I was reading through the notes earlier, I was thinking that would be so neat if players could do little like side stories. Obviously, it would be kind of difficult because, you know, WoW and Blizzard are very tight-knit about their canon and their story and their lore. But if you could just separate it and just say, hey, here's a little fan-made story about Malfurion, or here's certain characters, and be able to play through the questing and give the player kind of the freedom to do some cool stuff. I think that would be fantastic.
Star Trek Online and Neverwinter both had their Forge, I think it was called Forge system, where you could have access to limited amount of developers' tools and then create these little missions, and then players from the community could go in and play them. And they were fairly comprehensive, and there's some pretty cool player-created content that they did on that, with it all being, like Star Wars Legends.
Yeah. I remember City of Heroes had the mission architect. You could design instances with stories, and I thought that was... And they said these stories are player created. So like, they're not canon. They're just, and like, that would be so much fun. I mean, there's a reason games are getting popular with their mod packs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then they even went on to say player made content that can be bought from a market. I mean, for like Transmog, Pet and Mount Transmog. I mean, we saw this kind of with the two esports toys that came out. I mean, Blizzard made it, but they're going to something that's for teams. It would be kind of cool if somebody could design something. But I could also see Blizzard would have to struggle with IP theft. I mean, there's a lot of questions because like those marketplaces have to battle. Was this stolen from somewhere else? Because you see mods that steal from other things.
Yeah.
Outer space travel by Nomash rockets, space mining. Oh, could you imagine like Elite Dangerous?
I'm in.
Do it.
I remember all the episodes we talked about Elite Dangerous. That's the game I want to play at some point.
Okay, but anything space-based, I'm in. I loved even the original SWTOR Space Combat that was just on rails. I love that crap.
How was the Star Wars Galaxies? Did you ever play that one?
Yeah, I did. I bought a joystick for that, and it was clunky. It was clunky. The second version of SWTOR Space Combat was arcade space shooter fun. But the on-rails stuff, man, I played hours and hours and hours and hours of that. It was constantly something that people made fun of me for, almost as much as spider mounts.
Ooh, and it probably made your skin crawl when they made fun of you.
No. It just made me cry, but not on camera, not on air. I just cried after. Good. Yeah, like I will today about my age.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I hope you come back, Chris. I've had a lot of fun. And then
there's enough Kleenex.
Okay, I've got some right here because my nose always itches on camera when I'm streaming. Conan Exile avatars, mostly for the skins and shapes, but also the customization options and the slider and stuff like that.
It kind of scared me for a minute. I was like, "What?"
Haven't you seen the slider in Conan Exiles? Have you ever seen that? They're very realistic.
Yep. Yeah, I was uncomfortable in that game.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it was not one that I played with my kids around. Come on, let's go play Conan Exiles, kids. Dad, what am I watching?
And then like guilds that mean something, and I kind of see that guilds, they do mean something, but with guilds are in a weird place right now. I believe in WoW, because like you have like your communities, you have your raid teams. What is a guild other than like a 15-minute reduced Hearthstone cooldown and stuff like that? Oh, and better fishing, and they're saying like EverQuest had. So like, did EverQuest have a better fishing?
I don't remember. I don't think I did any fishing in EverQuest.
I can't remember either. It's been so long too.
Yeah,
I would definitely like the last thing, the smashable barrels with loot inside. Just, I know in ESO though, I would open up every single barrel.
Oh, I know, it's a OCD thing.
Oh, yeah. Dungeons and Dragons Online, smashy, every freaking barrel. Everyone.
It's rewarding though. It's like, I love that in Diablo. You just go up to the barrel.
Oh, feels so good.
Yeah.
Probably too good. Maybe I'm making people feel uncomfortable. I should stop.
Well, I mean, I think now is probably a good time to stop, because I think we've reached the end of the show.
Talking about enjoying smashing barrels too much, and time to move on.
And time to cut it.
Well, thank you both for joining me on FrazlCast tonight. It was a blast.
Yeah, I hope to do it again sometime. It's fun being on with Chris too. Although I've never met you, it's fun kind of putting a face with a voice that I had listened to for so long. So it's Fraz. I always enjoy hanging out with you, talking Blizzard, and hopefully you'll have me on for a third time.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to have both of you back on again. As long as both of you will come back on, and I didn't offend either of you, like the aged Chris and stuff like that, or Dusty.
Had to bring it up again, didn't you?
He had to.
Couldn't let it be. He couldn't let it go.
He insulted my podcast at the top of the show, and then Chris is gone.
Oh, I just have my foot in my mouth. That leather tastes really good right now. So where can we find you on the interwebs? We'll start with Chris.
I guess if I ever actually tweet at MMO_reporter, my own personal Twitter is at Amazar, but I've kind of really cut back on almost everything just because I have to I have to work. work.
I hear that it's like work, school, gaming, and I mean, like I said, right now I don't have a girlfriend and kids and stuff like that, so I don't have to worry about that stuff.
Yeah, so I used to do like 6-7 shows at a time, but now I have my music program. I'm the president of the local music teachers group. I run a jazz festival in town. I help the provincial music teachers group plan their conference. I do the live sound for that conference as well. So something about taking on too much. I think it's a theme here.
You're ambitious.
Yeah.
And Dusty, where can we find you?
Something I'm really proud of, I mentioned earlier in the show, the podcast that I do with Marty and Tom and Michael from the Blue Recluse and Ryan, called Nerd This, about all things nerd stuff, whether it's video games, comic books, TV shows, movies, whatever it may be, whatever we find interesting that week, we get to kind of get on and banter about. Very proud of that show. Marty does a super, super good job, and he's so talented at putting that show together. And those guys, I feel like even though we're all around the world, I feel like I'm sitting there with them every time we record a show. I also do a podcast called the YouTube Creators Hub podcast. It's actually has done really well for me. It's basically I get on and I interview YouTube creators and talk to them about their YouTube channels in hopes to help other people wanting to grow an online video presence. So if you're interested in any of that, definitely go check that out. But Dusty Porter on all the socials, and that's about it.
Nice. I think I'm going to go look for some barrels and Iron Forge to crawl into, because I'm looking at the stares of both of you right now, and I'm like, I'm a very ashamed gnome.
Activating customized corpus transporter.
Well, I am back at my home of Ironforge until we one day reclaim Nomergon.
Let's look at what has been happening in the community.
So I want to talk about a few things that are happening in the community. I talked about them on the 98, and I want to bring them up again. So Stone is doing the WoW Challenges 2019 Walk to End ALS. They have raised over $1,500, and they're raising it for ALS Canada, which provides free equipment and funds ALS research. So this is a thing that Stone has been doing every year, and this is a really cool thing. And I will have a link in the show notes to Stone's Twitter, and where you can find their Twitch schedule and what they're doing. But definitely, I support Stone and what they're doing, and I think this is awesome. And then also, April is Autism Awareness Month, and there are charity events with the support of r/wow, Raider.io, and Elgato, and they're doing things for the month of April. They'll be doing things like April 2nd, it's a Hot Ones AMA, where they'll be eating a series of foods with increasingly hotter hot sauces and answering questions. April 13th, they are doing a 20 to 120 marathon starting at 8 a.m. Pacific, and they say it should take between 25 to 35 hours. April 20th, they're doing a leveling of the warriors, where everybody will group up and kill things and get up to level 20. They're going to enable war mode, and they're going to meet up in a spot and fight in a faction versus faction battle. And they're also going to be doing the Iron Man Challenge from 20 to 120. Everything they're doing for April will be to raise as much money as possible for 2 charities, Integrate and ASAN. I've got details in the show notes to this. Check out both the Wild Challenges ALS walk and the Autism Awareness Month charity event. Thank you, community, for being awesome and doing awesome things for raising awareness and helping move us forward. And there's something else that's happening in the community that's also amazing. So there's kind of, for a while, been like an XSplit versus OBS, kind of like the PS4, Xbox Turf Wars. I personally XSplit because it works better in some areas, but OBS is great. Well, XSplit is sponsoring OBS as a gold level sponsor because XSplit says both do great things for streaming and for moving the industry forward. XSplit doesn't want it to be a XSplit versus OBS type of thing, so they're actually helping fund the support of OBS, and they're working on tools that people who use OBS can use. So this is really cool. 2 competitors who are working together. I've got a link in the show notes to their blog post about this. I think it's fun. It's one reason I love the podcast community. There aren't really competitors in podcasts. We have a share of ear, kind of like how XSplit OBS. You're probably not going to be using both at the same time. There are people that I know who use XSplit for one reason and OBS for another reason, but it doesn't mean that we have to be fighting each other. And then also, if you love music on streams, I've been using Pretzel at pretzel.rocks. And speaking of OBS, they now have a Streamlabs OBS app that you can get in the App Store. And when you sign up for this in the Streamlabs OBS, it gives money back to the artists that are played on the stream. So it is legal music, and the artists are getting paid for what they're doing. It's really cool. And I always like to take a time to thank all of my people who have been supporting me on Twitch. Thank you to Anastasia of General Chat, Chris of MMOReporter, Dusty Porter of Blizzard Umbrella, Nerd This Podcast, and YouTube Creators Hub, Epic Insanity, Michael the Boo Recluse, Posty, Rezuris, Sinead the Great, Thorn of Liking Balls, Tosh Mifune, Zorch, and Nihar. Thank you to all of you for your Twitch subs. And I want to thank Polly for the bits. All of your support and encouragement goes a long way toward this labor of love for the Blizzard community. Well, I guess with that, I'm Frazly, and you can find the show at gnomepodcast.com. So until next week, be awesome. And I just want to mention, if this is where you jet out at this point, we have awesome stuff coming up. Like we have overly dramatic news. We have the Fraz Report. I've got a promo for Soccer Studio. And I even have the full version of the Don't Forget About Your Alt song by Harry Hall from MMOReporter at the end of this episode. So stay tuned, and then I will see you all next week.
Missing portals cause controversy and creative call-outs. It's the Overly Dramatic News. I'm Hunts the Wind. Any change to the world of Azeroth is bound to have detractors. Sometimes the alterations lead to a furious backlash, but in the case of the new portal consolidation, the response has been of a more subtle and subversive nature on both sides of the conflict. ODN decided to investigate these responses. I first used a stealth drone to observe the portal room in Stormwind. What was curious to me is what I found on several walls where there were no active portals. One wall had Gilneas etched in calligraphy, along with a cryptic platform 9 3/4. Another was lit softly with wisplight, had a banner labeled Remember, and was strewn with flowers, top hats, and oddly what looked like a single pair of orcish shoulder pads. Saddened, I withdrew the drone and headed to Orgrimmar. In the Horde portal room, I found more creative work. On one bare wall was scrawled, Stoneyard closed due to slee stacks. Another had a small door drawn by the floor with pretty elvish lettering above saying Malkovich. But the final wall was the angriest. It had the words Triumph written in blue and Huge Success written in orange. Both phrases, however, were almost covered by a sloppy circle of red paint with a diagonal line slashed across the words. I finished the day by trying to buy a piece of cake advertised at a bakery in the Drag, only to be told they had sold out. Lesson of the day, there are many ways to be disappointed in Azeroth. Broadcasting across all Azeroth, I'm Hunts the Wind. Check out the archives at overlydramaticnews.com or follow me on Twitter at HuntsTheWind.
Welcome to the Frazl Report, a short broadcast by me, the Awesome Gnome, about the World of Warcraft. With patch 8.1.5 having hit the live servers, people are now enjoying the new portal room. One of the biggest remarks is that it is bigger on the inside. The other part that people are wondering about is how the mages renovated this room so fast. One day it was the old portal room, the next day it was already renovated. The Royal Stonecutters Union was not contracted for this remodeling. And from all accounts, the Stonemasons Guild has been disbanded, and they formed the Defiance Brotherhood, which later they were defeated, and they are rumored possibly to be part of a secret organization, but we aren't allowed to discuss those on the news report, as that could also mean we lose a proper sponsorship and funding from a secret organization, if a secret organization were refunding us, which we can neither confirm nor deny. Please put down those daggers. But regardless, no one knows how mages got the power to rebuild this portal room and defy the laws of physics and space to make a portal room that is bigger on the inside. Though I did see a flying blue box hovering near the tower earlier today, but it quickly escaped with a very low screeching sound when I spotted it. The new portal room looks amazing, and I noticed there are locked gates, which looks like the portal room could be expanded in the future, which even further baffles me. How are they doing this? Is the Academy of Arcane Sciences working with powers long forgotten, like the old gods? Is there something sinister that happens when we use a portal? Do we secretly give up a part of our essence when we use a portal? Feeding a vat of soul energy that will one day be used to take over all of Azeroth? Could that be where the locked gates go to? Not to mention for further expansions, but to our death? Or did the game developers just create a very nice looking portal room that defies logic and the answer is magic? We may never know. The same as we will never know how many licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. And with that, I think it's time for me to get out of here, as Ungirl Madness is happening and I want some more of that Dino Mojo. So until next time, be awesome.
You look to me like a slacker.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, I am a slacker.
Join these two slackers for a bi-weekly chat about beer, gaming, tech, and something random every show.
Just search Slacker Studio in your favourite podcast app. If you can be bothered.
You're a slacker.
FrazlCast is a fan podcast that covers Blizzard games. We are not affiliated with Blizzard Entertainment, Inc. Views expressed by the host and guests are their own. Some of the art, music, and sound effects come from Blizzard Games and are owned by Blizzard Entertainment, Inc. No copyright infringement is intended.
Want more awesomeness every week? Visit weeklyawesome.com. Weekly podcasts to make your week better. Remember to smile and be awesome.
This show is brought to you by Dragon Powered Studio. Find more at dragonpoweredstudio.com.
You're logging into your favorite game, grinding out some gear. A couple of points added to your stats, and you have a virtual beer. Max level is pretty cool, but I'll remind you here, my friend. These games are not about the goal, it's about the journey and not the end. Don't forget about your ults, you need to cherish each and every little character you've got, no matter what level they're at. Don't forget about your ults, you need to cherish each and every little character you've got, no matter what level they're at. You're running dungeons with your friends, doing all the high-end raids. That's how you spend your weekends, but stop before it's too late. You don't need to keep on grinding. You don't need to run around. You don't need that epic gear set. You don't need a spider mount. Don't forget about your ults, you need to cherish each and every little character you've got, no matter what level they're at. Don't forget about your alts you need to cherish each and every little character you've got, no matter what level they're at. Don't forget about your alts you need to cherish each and every little character you've got, no matter what level they're at. Don't forget about your alts you need to cherish each and every little character you've got, no matter what level they're at. Don't forget about your alts you need to cherish each and every little character you've got, no matter what level they're at.